It's now 1:30, and the regular meeting of the City Planning and Zoning Board for August the 7th will now call to order. Preliminary matters today are additions and deletions from our agenda. Tim, any?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Just want to point out I left on each of your desks and to the clerk and the attorney a revised attachment A. This will be agenda item C. We had a typo on there, and I've corrected it. So I'll bring that up at the every time.
Okay. Any other additions or deletions? Seeing not, we'll move for the approval of our minutes from our last meeting of July 3rd. Has everybody reviewed the minutes? Are there any corrections? Or
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Wasn't here.
I'll second here. I second it. I wasn't here, but I did watch it on TV.
Okay. We have a first and a second for the move. Any all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposes. Now is the time for public comment. It's open to anybody who would like to speak. And if you'd like to speak, you can come to the platform up above. In front, forgive me, not up above. And I'd like to mention to you, but if you're going to be speaking on a particular item that's going to come before us later on, you might want to reserve your time. There'll be another place for public input at that moment. But if for some reason you have to leave or have a timely, you can do it now. So I'm going to open up our meeting now for public comment. So if you're going to speak, please raise your hand now. If you're one of the people who are going to speak now. Seeing none, then I will close public comment for general public comment. The first item that will come before us today is a variance application to vary the front, side, and rear requirements for a 10-unit condominium complex number V1400003, located at 816 Azalea Lane. And Tim, are you going to make a
If you could ask
first.
about ex parte communications.
The chairman shall read the title, which I think I just did, and disclose by planning and zoning member boards any ex parte communications, if any. Does any of us have anything in particular you want to disclose? I do not.
I know nothing.
Disclosure by the planning and zoning department members, we have done that. Swearing of the applicant, staff, and all witnesses collectively by the city clerk. Anybody
You're going
who's
to
going to
testify
speak?
if you just raise your right hand, please. Repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Tim, are you going to make an opening statement?
Yes, I'll give a brief presentation on the staff report to go over that. The applicant is petitioning the board for setback variances for a 10-unit multi-unit development located at 816 Azalea Drive. The 10-unit condo project known as Azalea Gardens is located on a 12,500 square foot lot. The petition is for variances from the front yard and side yard setbacks. Just want to point out, we said rear in that, but actually, because they're two rights away, it's actually a side yard setback on the rear of the property. The applicant's also requesting a variance for the setback of a detached garage in the south property line. The attached shed structure, which extends into the city alleyway, is not included in this petition. The structure is being the latter structure is being addressed through a license permit agreement with the city. A 4-unit efficiency hotel building was initially constructed on the site in the early 50s. It was expanded to 10 units at a later date. In 81, the former property owner submitted a site plan application for a 10-unit Sandy Toes Motel Apartments to renovate the two buildings and construct the detached garage. At the time, the hotel motels were allowed in the R2 district. Subsequently, the property was purchased by the existing owners, and the Azalea Garden Condo Association was established in 1982. In the 80s, the zoning was changed to RM 1012, which allowed no motels, hotels, and allowed 12 units per residential acre. At the time, the development became a non-conforming use. Since that time, it appears the property has been used for short-term and long-term rentals. However, the city still considers it as a motel use. It can't be legally changed to a residential use without coming into compliance with the 12 units on the density limits, which would allow only 3 units on that property. It is clear in reviewing the records that the footprint of the two existing buildings were approved by the city in the existing locations. Apparently, they were issued certificates of occupancy that didn't meet the 25-foot yard setback or the 10-foot yard setbacks at that time. As for the garage, it was discovered in a recent property survey prepared for the buyer of the property that the property was only 25 feet in length from north to south, not 130 feet as shown in previous site plan submittals. Therefore, the garage was on the property line rather than 5 feet from the property line as required under the code. Based on this information, the staff reviewed the requested variance pursuant to the general and specific criteria for variances. They're presented in detail in the staff report. I'll briefly go over some of the major highlights. The existing location of the buildings creates a unique hardship in that it restricts any improvements or repairs the elements of the two principal buildings. However, as pointed out in the staff report, the nonconforming use status of the property impacts any additions or substantive improvements to the property which limit the value of any setback variances that would be granted. The exceptional and unique hardship is not due solely to the owner's actions, in the opinion of the staff. As pointed out in the staff report and my testimony right now, the existing building, including the garage, were approved by the city, and the issue regarding the length of the property was not discovered until the recent survey. The variances will not change the location or other characteristics of the existing buildings which have existed for at least 50 years or so. Therefore, the variances granted are compatible with the existing physical characteristics of the neighborhood. The variance would be in harmony and intent of the purpose of the code, as the buildings have been in existence for decades, and the variance will not convey any additional rights to the property owners. The variances are only allowed to reflect the existing setbacks of the building. Therefore, they're the minimum necessary. Staff finds that the requested variance meet the requirements of city code. However, we also find that the condition of the approval of the variances be subject to the condition that the variances automatically terminate should the property be brought into compliance. Meaning, we have a hardship right now with the property, but if they were brought into compliance, they would no longer have that hardship. Therefore, they would be given additional rights that other property owners in that same district would have. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of the variances, and we list them in our staff report, as well as the condition for automatic termination. Any questions you have of me?
Not at this moment.
I have a question. Has this property been sold any time in the past 20 years?
There may have been some. You'll have to ask the applicant because they've had some multiple owners over there, and they would be more familiar with the exact transactions.
Okay, let me ask a hypothetical then. If it did or if it would be sold, why wouldn't the title insurance or some other entity pick up all these problems?
Well, it's my understanding usually title insurance isn't picked up. It wouldn't pick that kind of thing up. Where you have is where mortgages are involved, generally the banks. That's where you do your boundary surveys. It's I talked to our surveyor about that, but that's my understanding. So, yeah, you could say due diligence. You should have had a boundary survey done, but you also, if you looked in the public record, you see approvals by the city all across the board, and a reasonable person would conclude the city approved it the way it was. And when you physically went out there and realized it was a half a foot off or a foot and a half off, then you realize there was an issue. But it wasn't brought up at that time. When those buildings were constructed, it was not brought up as an issue, which should have been brought up before the final CO was added.
Yeah, my experience has always been that when you get a lawyer's opinion and title, they have to find something. But
Well,
thank you.
No question. Right now? Right now?
Not now. Thank you.
We have no questions, additional questions of Tim right now. If the applicant would like to come up.
My name is Rebecca Emmons. I'm counsel for the applicant.
And you have been sworn in, Rebecca, right?
I have, yes.
Okay.
We don't have anything to add to the staff's recommendation because we're in agreement with their statement. I can address some of the questions that you had. First, with respect to whether there was any surveys ever done for the current owners or over the past 20 years, the form of ownership is in the form of a condominium. So any buyers over the course of the past 20 years were buying units in a condominium. And it's not common, or in fact it's uncommon, to have a buyer obtain a survey when they're purchasing a unit in a condominium. Because at the time the condominium was created and submitted to the form of ownership, it would have had a survey attached to the declaration when it was recorded, and that would have been the survey that would have governed everything. We believe that the 5-foot air was an assumption by the original developer and original surveyor that the alleyway in the back had already been abandoned, but staff for the city did extensive research for us and could not find an abandonment, so we believe that was the cause of the issue.
Okay, that was going to be an additional question. Is that an active alley or inactive?
A portion of it is active, and it's the alley just north of Chelsea's that allows access to the back of those buildings. But then, as that alleyway continues, it's jungle and trees and vegetation and fencing for the properties over there.
We're not allowed to drive by.
You couldn't get a car back there, no.
You can?
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean as a
I know the
because of ex parte communications, we're not allowed to go out and eyeball the site specifically before this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there was a prior question, but I don't recall what the prior question was.
I think it had to do with purchasing the property. Had there been any other purchases?
Sales,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, sales.
But and then you were right.
Yeah.
I had forgotten it was a condo unit. So,
No. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I don't, not this time.
Just a little clarification. This variance is only for the garage? Is that?
No, it's for the two buildings, a part of that, and the garage. So
Okay.
if you see on the, it shows where the yellow is, those were the variants, all right?
What plan is there for the dumpster that I see there?
Well, we have a license agreement with the dumpster. Also, I didn't bring that up, but there's a license agreement taking care of the dumpster issue, which I believe is being taken care of with the license agreement for the attached shed and all.
Yes, we're working on that
Yeah.
right now. And
Okay.
that document has already gone to the seller and the buyer's attorneys, and they'll present that at the closing, and it will be signed there and remitted back to us for signature.
That dumpster is not going to be located, it is or is not going to be located in the easement for the alley.
It currently is not in the alley. There's, to the best of my knowledge, no plans to change its existing location. And if you'll note, it's right on the corner of the property line in the easement alley, or the easement on Eagle Drive.
It's also not enclosed, it is totally exposed to the public and everybody driving by.
I don't know the answer to that.
I didn't drive by in particular, but I recognize the building and recognize some of the property things that are on it. Is that correct? This can ask the applicant, is it correct? Is it totally exposed to
The applicant's not here.
Oh, okay.
They live out of town.
Well, we can address, we'll take a look at that in the license agreement. I haven't seen that.
I mean, I don't
Right.
recall there being any shelter around.
Right, and I couldn't tell
It
you.
indicates broken pavement there? Yeah.
So, okay.
Peggy, you mentioned a buyer and a seller and a closing. Is that an
Yes.
issue that we should know about?
I can't imagine why it would.
There's a scheduled closing conditioned upon getting approval of these existing setback issues and the encroachments. And the license agreement, the city is requiring be with the new buyer.
But since it's a condo, it's a buyer of one unit we're talking about, or multiple units?
The
or-
individual in question is buying all of the units.
Oh,
May I ask another couple of well, it brings up things to me. We're going to make an agreement with the city that the garage that's over into the alleyway can exist.
No, the garage goes to the property line.
I'm sorry.
But there's an attachment that goes
to the
in
property
there.
line.
And basically, that is something that it can't be repaired. Eventually,
If we
Go
have
ahead.
any site plan or visions, it has to be become compliant at that point in time.
Yes, they've got that
And if
issue.
there's any modifications or corrections to the building that need a building permit of any kind, they have to come into compliance then, is that correct?
No, not totally. It depends. They can do up to 25% minor repairs on the building and that. So there are some limitations on that. So they can do certain things to it, but they're kind of limited. They can't expand, they can't make additions, and all that without, or change the use without coming into compliance. So there's some triggers that come into play.
Wouldn't someone purchasing all the condo units indicate that there might be a change of use, or they're just going to purchase them all and then resell them
Well, the problem is,
individually?
right now, we consider it still a non-conforming motel. We could run it as a motel.
Oh,
All right, but any other change of use then would trigger having to come in compliance with that zoning district.
The only problem that I really have with this is the fact that we're being asked to approve something so it can be sold, but then we're saying, okay, after it's sold, we're going to remove.
No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is those variances will go with the property as long as the property doesn't come into compliance for a site plan. If somebody comes in and says, I want to get rid of the whole building and bring in 3 townhouses, they would have to be in compliance, because you don't want to give variances. I mean, the hardship's gone once you've come into compliance. This is to allow them to continue with this property during that period where there's still a non-conforming use.
So we don't have any Bert Harris issues here at all when
No,
it comes
no.
to
No,
redevelopment?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, Rebecca, I think my biggest problem is that a prudent buyer, and that's where you've corrected me since then, a prudent buyer would have a property surveyed before they purchased it, and if it wasn't in compliant with the rules and regulations in effect at that time, that they would then address it before they culminated the sale. You threw a wrench in my thought processes after I got done reading this, because you say as a condominium buyer that isn't necessarily true, and I have bought a couple condominiums in my life, and I guess that is true. Someplace, what I don't want to let exist is what I believe to be there, as far as the dumpster being on the side where people can see it and the adjacent neighbors. Now, I don't know if there's any of them here today to have any input from them or not, but when we get to that point, then I would like to have some input from them, because I think I know this property, I live in this neighborhood, and therefore I want to make sure that it's going to be appropriate. We're not going to do anything that's to the detriment of the neighborhood, especially when they're in a non-compliant situation. I know that may go a little bit, but that's the way I feel about it right now. And I have to have a reason for that. And if that dumpster, I'd like to know where that dumpster is located, I think, to be able to find that out. So,
You have the survey? You see it on the survey?
yes.
Okay.
Well, the dumpster goes into the Eagle right away, and that's why we have a license agreement. As I said, I have not looked at the license agreement, the draft, and certainly if there's some concerns that is not screened, and you have to have an enclosure generally, that we could certainly look at that.
Will the city require that before they give the license out for this?
I don't know what the enforcement procedures are, Tim.
Well,
Have
no.
you discussed the
Essentially, it's a
screening of the-
license agreement that the new owner would have to enter into. I have not seen that license agreement. I know we were dealing with it, but I can assure you,
The license agreement isn't something we're deciding today.
No,
per se. So
no,
this
no.
board has
But-
no relevance over that decision.
no,
Is
but
that
you're
correct?
you're concerned about something over the line, but they're really on a setback. A lot of these dumpsters are right up there on the line, but they're supposed to be enclosed, and that's why I was asking. I was out at the site, but to be honest with you, I cannot remember if it's closed, but certainly, is it?
It is.
Well, if
It
it's
is
enclosed,
enclosed. I
it
didn't
meets
know
the
that.
thing.
Okay.
It meets
So
the code
basically,
then.
yes.
If it's enclosed, it meets the code.
And
Yes.
I didn't remember that. 'Cause I
Okay,
didn't go
and
look at
it's
it.
been out there for a long time. I mean,
I didn't remember that. I thought I saw it sitting right out
okay,
there.
and I'm sorry, I was out there too.
And that location isn't impacted by the variance.
No.
No.
It's
Okay.
outside the realm of
Yeah.
what you all are
Yeah.
looking at.
Okay. I have no additional. Anybody else have additional questions, Rebecca?
right now.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now I can open it up for public. Anybody who would like to come and speak on this property, if you can come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Cook, and I own the property just due west on the other side of Eagle Trail on the corner of Azalea. And so I'm concerned about what the future of that property is. I am very in favor of them making improvements. It's run down seriously, but I would really like to know, if they didn't get this variance, what can they do with the property? And if they do get the variance, what can they do with the property?
I think I've thought.
Basically, they're non-conforming use. So if they don't get if they get the variance, they could do some obviously, they can do internal improvements as long as no additional space and all that. Okay. The setback variances, they could do some improvements, like maybe raise the roof a little, as long as it doesn't cross that 25% threshold. But they can't make any other additions and all that. So they're very limited. So if they don't get these variances, then they're basically they're held to that 25%. They can't do anything on those. I mean, basically, they have what they have, and they're still struck. The non-conforming use thing is the real major issue that makes it very difficult to do anything.
So if they get this variance, then what can they do with it?
Well, they can, as I said, if they get this variance, they can only do some minor. They can do the up to 25% minor repairs in the interior. They may be able to do some changes along the setback wall. As I said, maybe raise the ceiling a little. But as long as they don't add additional space or use of the property, they're okay. But they're really limited. As I said, they can't expand or do anything. So
if it were to be totally torn down,
then they would have to rebuild for something that's allowed in the RM 1012, and the residential density of 12 an acre allows 3 units on that property.
So it might be something like the 3 units that are on Bougainvillea that back up to the alley on the other.
Probably a townhouse of some sort for some sort of triplex. Yeah.
And does the variance then go with the?
No, as I pointed out, the way we are conditioned, the variance goes away once they come in. If they were to come back with something like that, it goes away, because if it doesn't go away, then they'll have some additional benefits that other people in the same district would not have, and that was why we did that way, or recommending it that way.
Okay, those are my questions.
If we approve the variance from 15 feet to 10 feet on these side yards, they can't take additional. They can't build additional things out to the 10 feet, can they? You mentioned up, but and you also mentioned they can't add.
Well, no, if they add, they can't add any square footage or land. So if they can, they can play around, but it's pretty hard to extend anything out without expanding.
So the footprint has to stay the same. The footprint is
going to stay where it is. Yes.
This particular property is convoluted in a lot of ways, because we're dealing with several different issues, and they're coming at us at one time.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to piece together right now. If we grant them the variance, then they're compliant with being non-compliant. Is that right? It amounts to
The setbacks would be considered compliant.
Compliant, but they're non-compliant with what the zoning is on the property.
That's
but
correct.
They can't do any more to the property than what it is right now, except modifications, which means you can't expand the footprint, but you can improve the windows, and you can put in up to 25% of the assessed value of the property today.
That's correct.
Did I say that right?
You got it right on the money.
Okay.
And one of the findings, remember, that you have to find in order to grant a variance is the last one. The variance granted is the minimum necessary in order to alleviate the exceptional and unique hardship. And staff's analysis, Tim's analysis, is that what is being recommended is that minimum necessary.
Okay.
So that's your competent substantial evidence that is.
Can I take it one more step? If we turn down the variance, if the variance is turned down, what impact does that have?
Well, it may have, other than it may hurt their sale, and I don't know if that's the case, but it would, further limit any kind of things as I'm talking about that deal with the setback, that don't expand the additions, and I can't even guess what they would be. I said the thing that came to my mind would be me raising the roof a little to give, for whatever reason, and that wouldn't expand the area, but it would allow, maybe for more height, and I'm not that familiar with the building. I'm just pointing out, I think it's very limited, and I point that out in the staff report.
And doesn't this also come from a code enforcement angle?
It mentioned that. What is the code enforcement issue?
Well, the only code enforcement issue had to do with we're taking care of that with that into the right of way,
into the right of way,
and the dumpster. I mean, but that's been there. But
Sure.
there hasn't been there've been other code enforcement issues to this property not related to what we're talking about.
Okay, but to answer one of Nancy's questions, couldn't this turn into just a regular motel as opposed to part
Certainly
of the units being rented
certainly
as
if
motel rooms?
we look at it as a motel, they could. The use would continue. They're just limited by what they can do based on the non-conforming use aspects.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other question. Do I understand that there is a alley that is bordering one side of that property?
It's on the south side of the building.
Right, and if it is not usable, why wouldn't they apply to have the alley abandoned? It's not functional.
They haven't applied for it. I don't think there's a reason they can't.
Well, the alley would have to be split in half, and then not all the alley's been abandoned, so it creates some problems for staff. Normally,
It
you
also
abandon
wouldn't
them.
solve the problem. It's
It
not
wouldn't
big
solve that
enough.
problem.
No.
Yeah.
Some of it
Not
has
big
been
enough to-
abandoned and some of it hasn't?
No, none of it's been abandoned.
If you're going into the north side on that same
Yeah.
alley, use that to go back in, if I remember, to some newer buildings
Yes,
that's
and
there.
that's a viable alley. I mean, you
And
have
that's the-
access to property, but the rest of this, as somebody pointed out, it's like a jungle back there, and you couldn't take it. But it has not been. It's still in the city. It's still a city alley on the books, and that's what caused a lot of people. I don't think they were aware of that when you got into this. Yeah. I mean, we did a thorough. David Gay, our surveyor, did a thorough research on this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
If you read what's in here, it's left and it's right, and it's just a history of bumbling, is what it looks like. Truthfully, through the owners in the city and the engineers
And a lot
else.
of the problem is, and Mr. Chairman, it goes back to these are records that you can't even get a hold of,
In
and
the
that's what
50s.
the applicant had a problem with. And I was lucky to find what we had in '81, but we had nothing before that because they weren't that. But the building records were hard to find, and so we had to take with what we had. And I gave you everything we had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else would like to speak? Seeing nobody, feel free to come to the podium.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name?
Oh, Elaine Giffen.
And were you sworn in when we took?
Where's what?
Were you sworn in?
Oh, no.
You need to be sworn.
You need to be sworn in
If
then
you'll just
before.
raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And give us your address and your name again, please.
3200 Eagle Drive.
Okay.
I own the property next to this property,
Next to it being which direction?
where the dumpster is.
Where the dumpster is. You're behind the alley then?
But, and when you say alley, you're talking about the right-of-way the city has to go
Yes,
to-
forgive me.
Yes, okay. Yes, I'm on the alleyway.
Okay.
It's a 5-unit
Unit.
building.
I understand that.
My concern is, and
Do we have an area?
not the best hearing in the world, but we kind of scooted around this garage and this extension off the garage. Is that going to be torn down?
I can't answer what they're going to do with it. No, I mean, basically, the license agreement allows them to keep the garage. The garage won't be turned down. It's on their property, okay? But the attached shed, there's some attachments to it. They're going to be under the license agreement, but there's going to be a requirement they can't repair it, and eventually it'll go away.
But is it not on the alleyway itself?
It is anyway. That's why.
It can be taken down, right?
Well, it's a license agreement. The city's agreed to do a license agreement because the thing's been there forever. And so we agreed to do a license agreement with those kind of conditions placed on it.
I don't understand what that license agreement means.
Well, the license agreement, when you do things development in the right-of-way or city type of right-of-way, it's outside the zoning ordinance. It gets into license agreements, and the city, under license agreements, allows people to do certain things in a right-of-way.
So if they could allow them to just keep it there?
Yes, with the conditions we were talking about. And if the city needs to take over that alleyway for whatever reason, they're going to have to take it down.
Is it in good condition? Is it safe?
Yeah.
I mean, why do you want to give a license to preserve it as opposed to asking them to take it down?
It needs to be torn down, actually.
But if I go back to the question, this board, I don't think is going to speak to that because that's the city independently of this board creating that licensing agreement. So we won't get the rule on that or have an opinion, I guess I should say, on that, other than you can hear us verbalize a little bit up here and yourself and others about what they think about it. But the fact is, I think our vote will not have any impact on it. The only thing we'll be impacting on is the variances for the buildings themselves.
Right, that's not germane to the variance.
Okay.
Well, isn't the shed mentioned in the variance?
No, it's excluded.
Oh, okay. But there was testimony that that alleyway is jungle, and now we learn there's a shed in it.
Well, no,
It's not a jungle.
Well, it was brought up as a jungle, but you cannot take a vehicle through there. That's the whole thing. But it does extend into that alleyway, and part of the shed problem had to do when they extended it at some time. Had to again go back to that site plan way back in '81.
If we had an aerial, it would be greatly helpful. But if you can't take a vehicle back there, what is the access to the garage?
No, the garage comes off Eagle.
It comes
Yeah,
in
you
here
can see the garage off Eagle.
right in here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see a driveway or
No, there's
anything.
not. It's open. It's just like an open parking area.
Yeah, it's just a parking area.
Gravel.
It's a gravel parking area.
Okay.
And
we don't have an aerial?
I think the
Why have the city out to trim a tree and they said it was fine?
The survey shows it.
Oh, no, you can't.
Wait,
Don't do that.
Tim, I think the confusion here is in the back up under staff analysis.
Yes.
Where it says these nonconformities create a hardship as they restrict any improvements or repairs to elements of the two principal buildings and accessory garage that encroach in the setback.
Well, and that's it, but it doesn't include the attachments to the garage, which were a shed and a patio.
Okay, so the attachments is a separate issue.
Right, it's a separate issue, right.
So is there a patio also that extends into this
It was
alleyway?
all part, it was a screened patio at one time. We can't keep track of all this, but there had been some changes done to all this thing. And it's been there for such a long time. It's one reason we get into these kind of things. I mean, I can't tell you, it's just been there. So it's not part of what we're dealing with here. And we excluded that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A question for the attorney. How many units in the condo unit are being sold that we're looking for this variance?
There's 10 units,
Yes?
and all 10 are being sold.
Oh, all 10. So it's the entire property?
Mhm.
Okay. And no Bert Harris problem?
And okay, so it's my consensus. Is there any further public input? Seeing none, I'll close public input. I just have a suggestion, not an answer. We don't have any additional discussion here. Or, go ahead.
I have a hypothetical issue. There's an alley, unabandoned but overgrown, that's on the third side of the property. Two sides of the property are on public roadway, the third being on the alleyway.
Correct.
These are now residential occupied condominium units. If this, hypothetically, if this were to convert to a motel, the occupancy and the traffic in and out of that property would increase substantially. seems to me that that would become a fire department issue, in that that alleyway may have to be used for fire department access. And going back to what Tim raised, that the city could in fact take this right away over at some point in time, for whatever reason. One of which could be a fire prevention reason. Seems to me that that alleyway is important to be maintained as an alleyway.
And that's what the license agreement would do. Basically, if we need to take that structure out, it'll go.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, that's,
And I agree.
yeah.
Speaking personally to the issue, I think whatever obstructs that alleyway needs to go. For the reasons that I mentioned.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to go with staff and vote for this. However, I think it's very difficult in that we're not supposed to go visit the site. There are no photographs. There are no aerials. There are a myriad of problems, and it's difficult not having driven by or only able to visualize it from this kind of a top view, if you will. It's just very hard to make a decision, an informed decision. So I'm just going to have to go with the staff.
A question. It's a non-conforming use. It's a residential neighborhood. When this is sold, do they have the right to continue it as a motel?
Yes.
They do. And the neighborhood's been notified about this?
Everybody was within 500 feet of property owners have been notified.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
The discussion point that I've been trying to work on in my mind here is that I see us as helping the owner of the property facilitate a sale of this property in total. That may or may not be true. I don't have any personal knowledge of that otherwise, but from the information that's gathered from what I've assumed, that's my assumption. And that the new owner then will be dealing with this. He can leave it the way it is into perpetuity, and he'll get an agreement from the city, some kind of an agreement for the shed that encroaches into the easement in the alleyway, okay, and can still continue into perpetuity. But if he wants to do anything else with the building within reasonable, either take it down or to change its usage or to make any significant improvements, this agreement with the city will be withdrawn or canceled out, and he will have everything, all these other violations of the site plan will have to come into compliance for wherever he's going. So what I think they've come to us for is to try to get, they can facilitate the movement of the property, because right now there's probably going to be, if there's a mortgage being placed by most lenders, they would say you can't do this till you have all these things repaired. So my point is, we're helping the owner get through a problem. But I don't know that that's what I believe, and I think if the problem was removed to being other than it is right now, we wouldn't get a worse situation than I think is out there right now. I think that it might improve it.
And of course, the specific review criteria for variance applications is really what you're looking at. Right. And Tim's gone through all that criteria. He's given you his staff recommendation. That's competent, substantial evidence. He's noted that there is an exceptional and unique hardship, that it's not due to the owner's actions.
But I disagree with that one.
Et cetera.
That is not a fact. That's an opinion.
Well, that's staff recommendation.
Okay. Because I think you should have got a survey on a property. I think whoever they bought the condominium from, they'd had recourse back to the seller of the condominium then if they didn't have proper documentation on the lot that they were building on. So,
you mean the condominium unit?
Yes.
Yeah.
The condominium owner should have went back anytime and say, you didn't do what you said. This is not right. So,
One more clarification, Mr. Chairman. Tim, this, as I understand it, there are some units that are being used as motel, and some that may or may not be, that are either rentals or could be owner-occupied. So the possible uses in the future are either 100% motel, 100% owner-occupied condo units, some rentals, or any combination of the above, right?
If someone were to use that as their get a homestead on it, there would be a violation.
It would.
It's a motel, so you can't. There are no homesteads on that, as far as I know, on that property. And how they're using all the units, it's a little murky, but some are short term. That's my understanding. You would have to ask the applicant any further on that. But at this point in time, this has been ongoing for so many years. We're dealing with a letter. I think I brought out in my staff report that we got 93 that was asked that question, and nothing's changed since that letter was issued in 93.
One more thing, Rebecca, forgive me, but is this, assuming it's being at least partially used as a motel, is it governed by the relevant motel licensing authorities?
Well, I don't believe it's licensed, but our ordinance doesn't say you have to be necessarily licensed. Now, you might have a statute involved, and I can't answer that right in here. So
okay, so and we nor you in code enforcement are.
Well, I mean, we would have to look, if there was an issue here, we'd get into it even more. I'm dealing with something that came to my attention through this variant, so I don't have all the answers to that.
Okay.
Tim, just in summary, the new owner would either keep the property as it is, or a new site plan would come forward, in which case it would be more compatible with the existing community.
Right. I mean, he could, I was stating they could go to residential. They could come back and do a conditional non-residential type that are allowed in that district, through approval.
And that site plan would come back before you all.
Right.
That would come back before you.
Yeah, okay.
Question for Tim. The applicant, in fact, has a sale in progress. The applicant, in order to effect the sale, had to go to the city to deal with the exceptions to the title and/or survey. The applicant has asked the city for concessions, negotiated with the city for concessions, in essence, to effect the sale.
I mean, are you calling the variance request concessions?
The licensing?
Yes.
The
Well, the licensing
and
is
the license.
something,
They
because
can't-
it's been so long, the city felt, we've discussed this internally in staff, and with the manager on that. So, I mean, we felt that was a fair and equitable thing to do, especially if we had the out that the building would have to come down, they couldn't do any repairs to that.
So the
But
city has negotiated.
we talked to them about it.
Yes.
It was an issue, yes.
Okay. And I'm not asking why the city didn't go a step further and require that the shed be taken down. But it seems to me that what we're being asked to do is clean up the title because of past mistakes.
That's a good way to put it.
But on top of that, we're giving the buyer and seller a concession to do it. It's not just the city getting the title cleaned up here, the survey lines and easements cleaned up. We're giving a concession. I just want to make that
Variance
point.
is a concession.
Well, I mean, and remember, we don't have clean hands in this. This thing was approved by the city back when. It was built the way it was. The site plan was approved, and it had an inaccurate thing, and nobody picked that up. The city. So, you know what I mean?
Does that onus fall on the city, though, or does that onus fall on...
Well, it's on both sides. But I'm saying we're not totally... I mean, to look at everything here. It was approved, and I think that's official government action. And you have to look at that kind of thing. So I look at it that way too when I'm looking at these kind of things.
Are we going to hear that this was before your time?
Actually,
I wasn't born yet. I wish I hadn't been born yet, but
and you have to remember what a variance is. It's a relief valve based on a hardship.
Okay.
And according to competent substantial evidence, there is a hardship here.
Any further discussion by the board members? Are we ready to make a decision?
I move that we accept staff's recommendation.
Do we have a second to that? Joe will second that.
hope that
And that's with all of the conditions.
with all the
correct?
findings
Yeah.
and the conditions, yeah.
Could I make a recommendation that
Yeah.
we include in there that they must get the appropriate agreement with the city, that be a part of before the licensing before we go forward and amend that?
A license agreement.
Yeah,
It's really outside of the scope of what you
Yeah.
all are dealing with. And it's being handled administratively through Mr. O'Connor.
Okay,
That was a no.
yeah.
polite.
I'll withdraw my amendment. You want to call for a vote? So we have to take a vote, okay?
Mr. Cahoy?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Mucher?
Yes.
Mrs. Manous?
Yes.
Mr. Lauper?
Worst is, yes.
Passes 5-0.
I'm not indecisive, but I couldn't. It's a tough one.
Hold your nose and vote.
The next item on our agenda is a quasi-judicial item also, and it's the site plan application to allow the proposed addition of a 3,280 square foot outdoor dining area, including 7 paver areas with tiki huts and tables and numerous Adirondack chairs, number SP14000003. Location of that is at 1025 Beachland Boulevard. And because it's quasi-judicial, we have to ask that the chairman read the title, which I did, and we have disclosures by any of the planning and zoning members of ex parte communications, if any.
None, thank you.
Anybody else on the board have anything to disclose?
Mr. Chairman, I have no ex parte communications. I would like to state that Mulligan's is a member of the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the treasurer, but I have no conflict, no voting conflict.
I understand. We'd like to have the swearing of the applicant and all witnesses collectively. So if you'd like to stand, we'll have that.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Tim, are you going to make the presentation?
Oh, yes. You got me all day. The applicant's requesting site plan approval of 3,280 square feet outdoor dining, which is as part of its restaurant located in Sexton Plaza on the Holiday Inn property. This request is for an after-fact approval of the dining area, and I want to point that out. It's after the fact. What is out there currently has been under a code citation for over a year and a half. We entered into an informal agreement with the applicant to try to get, and they agreed immediately. They wanted to come into site plan approval, which I could not give them as planning director. I had to come before you because of the amount of outdoor area. And basically, it was a long process. The applicant, to our satisfaction, tried the best they could, but they had issues with their landlord and reaching a contract. So this carried out over a year and a half before we were able, till March, to be able to get authorization for submittal of the site plan. So basically what being asked today is what is currently out on that site, which we allowed to continue, knowing that they would come before you at this date. We were hoping it would have been a lot sooner date than this, but it's been this date. The other thing I want to point out to you, we did mention how many chairs are out there, but when you get into restaurants and floor area, you're looking at the area, not the number of tables or anything of that. So that's something to understand on this. As I pointed out, it wasn't until March that the applicant was able to finally submit their application because of this holdup on authorization. And at that time, we had to go through. The applicant had also had to provide a traffic impact study, and we had some issues. I dealt with this county on that, and we finally reached an agreeable methodology to have that completed. The site plan's been reviewed by the staff, and we find it in compliance with the general review of the performance and development standards, the LDRs. Some of the more specific elements that are germane to this case is that one, at the open space requirements, there's plenty of open space on that site. You've got to remember that all beachfront properties generally go to mean high water. So there's a lot of property, all our beachfronts do that. So there's a lot of open space that may not look on the property, but that's included. As to the parking, the 2,805 square feet is exempt from off-street parking requirements. It's not considered floor area. This was a deliberate decision we made several years ago, and it was recommended by you all, approved by City Council, that to encourage outdoor dining, that we wouldn't consider that as parking for that. However, there is approximately 475 feet that is located under the roof line of the restaurant, and of that, 275 feet has to meet. There is parking required to meet that. The other 200 is exempt under our ordinance. So basically, in our calculations, the 3 additional spaces are needed. However, when you look at our code again, we allow some credit for public parking that's located along the frontage, and they have at least 7 spaces in Sexton Plaza that are along there. So they're allowed credit like we've done with everybody else. So they clearly, under our code, meet the requirements for parking. The traffic impact study was reviewed and approved. The additional outdoor dining meets the concurrency requirements. The Public Works reviewed the site plan, and there was no problems with the meeting storm drainage requirements. The drainage meets all the requirements of that department. Therefore, the staff finds that the plan meets the general development standards of the land development regulations. As for the site design standards, the outdoor dining area is fully contained on the property. It's buffered from property to the north because of the north wing of the Holiday Inn. On the south, you have the Sexton Plaza and its parking. So it's pretty well self-contained, and you have obviously the ocean on the east and the hotel itself on the west. The amount of additional traffic to be generated during peak hours has been estimated at 36 vehicle trips per the peak hour. As to the outdoor dining, we've really received no complaints about the outdoor dining. We have received some complaints about employees actively trying to circumvent weekday parking duration requirements, which are, I believe, 3 hours in that, or 2 or 3 hours in there. You know what? During peak season, I get complaints about every hotel and establishment generally along the beach. We get the same complaints from a lot that goes on. And granted, parking's tight in that area, especially, you have a successful commercial district. However, that's not, in all aspects, they still meet the code for our parking requirements. So based on these findings, the staff recommends approval of the site plan as presented.
Is the applicant here would like to come forward? You have been sworn in. Would you please both state your names?
Yes, George Hart, owner of Mulligan's Restaurants.
Angie Shepers, I do marketing for Mulligan's.
Good afternoon. Just to clear up the application, approximately 6 or 7 years ago, and I couldn't give you an exact date, Jim Gabbard and I had conversations about outdoor seating. We've been using the outdoor area since the day I've arrived there 12 years ago. Jim knew at that time that we had an overwhelming request to have seats out on the grass and on the ocean, and I pointed out to Jim at that time that we have what we call our north room, which is a little banquet room on the north side of the building that we use when it rains, and when it doesn't rain, we don't use it, and we put our seating outside on the grass. The reason that is because of the size of our kitchen. It can only make so much food an hour, and if we have every seat and every possible area filled with people, we're going to have a lot of mad customers. So when we use the grass, we don't use the 30 seats in the north room. Most of the area it's 7 tiki tables, which 7 years ago and up to a year and a half ago, it was round tables with chairs. The tiki huts is what brought the attention of the city and the people surrounding us. We always had 25 or 30 Adirondack chairs out there. Most of the time, people take a glass of wine or a drink from the bar and go sit out there and watch the sunrise or sit out there in the evening. So impacting the kitchen or, it really is just a casual drink. A lot of those people come from the hotel, or a lot of those people come from Casa de Este or from the Vero Beach Inn. There's a lot of foot traffic from these hotels that are out on my front yard in the evening or in the early morning. So we have been using this area consistently for at least the last 7 years and have really found no problems with any of our neighbors, or like Jim says, always one of my employees is trying to park where they're not supposed to. We tell them time and time again where to park, and then they park. We find one of them that makes up their own parking regulations instead of the ones that we live by, and which we live by the same rules everyone lives by, is park where you're required to park. I don't follow them to their car every day, so I don't know where some of them do find themselves parked. But we certainly, try to follow the rules and regulations and be good neighbors and do the things that we need to do for everyone to be successful there. We believe that the hard work we do, brings people to that area, and everyone there benefits from that. I think that, our customers go to the downtown and enjoy the downtown. It's a beautiful area, so the things we do there we think are positive things, and putting tables on the grass, I think is a positive thing. It's what the city wants, it's what the vacationers want, which makes the area a better place. So I'll answer any questions, but Jim Gabbard was very helpful to me 7 years ago. He's not here today, he's probably playing golf somewhere, having a good time where we all should be, but maybe can't play through lightning, but Tim has also been very helpful to me, and we did have an uncooperative landlord at times, and although they're nice people, then sometimes they're uncooperative, and we did try for a year to get this application signed, and we chased him around and finally caught up with him, and not for lack of effort, we wanted to get it done as soon as possible, but we ran into some snags in that area, so I'll answer any questions you may have.
Tim, I remember this coming in front of the board before, but I don't remember the content of it.
Probably was the dumpster, the infamous dumpster.
Well, we had the dumpster, but he mentioned the north room and the outdoor dining as well, as I recall. Again, this was before your time, but and my memory isn't what it should be, but in cases like this, it'd be nice to have like previous minutes, I think.
I recall that too. I don't recall exactly what the conversation was either. It may have been just from my initial patio, or
Yeah, there was you did get something for your initial patio.
It may have been about the dumpster when we were talking about moving the dumpster and adding additional seats onto my existing patio. That could have been the conversation when we were talking about the north room.
Because I can't remember the dumpster as separate.
It is. That was fun. In our world, it's that was fun. 7 years of a fight that I had there with that dumpster too. Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Several years ago, maybe 2, we were looking at site plans for that Holiday Inn. Is this being impacted anyway with it?
You mean with the when we were doing the overlay district?
Yeah.
I get calls from every now and then, but they haven't made any decision, and I think Mulligan's has a long-term lease. So
yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious if we're doing this what is it going to impact and mean in the future, to the Holiday Inn?
Well, I mean, they've got, the Holiday Inn's given an authorization
Yeah,
here, and
right.
so,
Yeah.
that's a business decision. Well,
Sure.
I was going to say, we know how to find their attorney.
Right.
Been here an awful lot.
Yeah, well, the owners are hard to find, the attorney's easy to find.
Oh, okay.
Any additional questions?
Hey, I have a question,
Sure.
sir. Recognizing that 25 to 30 of the chairs, Adirondack chairs, are movable
Yes.
and removable, are there permanent improvements on that property now, number one, such as the tiki hut and flooring? Number two, how long have those improvements been in place? And number three, were they properly permitted at the time?
The tiki huts, well, we had existing tables out there.
They're removable.
Yes. Well, these tiki tables are removable too. They're not permanent structures.
Okay, so there are no permanent structures.
No, of anything there out there. If there was a hurricane coming, we would take those tiki huts and put them inside.
All right.
Wouldn't be easy, but we would do it. They're pretty heavy, but they're not nailed into the ground now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions of the applicant? Thank you.
My pleasure.
How many members of the public would like to speak? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Please come forward. One at a time. That's fine also, yes. Have you both been sworn in?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And please state your name and your address, if you would.
I'm Lori Connolly, and I'm at 3010 Nassau Drive, Vero Beach.
Yes, Trey Higdon, 830 River Trail, Vero Beach.
We are here to speak on behalf of our parents, Dee Dee Ashby and Jim Higdon, who couldn't be here today. My dad's on a buying trip, and my mom's up in North Carolina for the summer. But our parents own the Petite Shop in Sexton Plaza, along with the building where Dee Dee's Shoe Salon is. My grandparents built the building in 1952, and it has been around for almost 62 years now. So we've seen a lot of changes, and one of our biggest issues is the parking problem. And we don't have a problem at all with what Mulligan's is trying to do. I think it's great. It's a nice beachy atmosphere. It is a problem with parking. I have counted the amount of spaces, the amount of seating outside, and it's closer to about 120. And I haven't counted what's inside. Now, I know you base your parking spaces on your square footage, which to me doesn't really make sense, because if you're talking about seating for 300 people, if you count the inside and the outside, please tell me where all those people are supposed to park in Sexton Plaza. If they're allocated a certain amount of parking spaces, which I have looked at this, and I'm assuming they are, why are the store owners not allocated a certain amount of parking spaces? On a weekend or during season, you will not find parking in Sexton Plaza or on Ocean Drive. I'm on the beach pretty much every single day, and there are no parking officers on the weekends, so people are coming and parking in front of my parents' stores and staying at the beach the entire day. My parents' clientele is an older clientele. They are not going to park 4 blocks down the road in order to shop in my parents' store. And I have heard numerous of times, and I will also tell you, I was the Oceanside Business Association event coordinator for almost 4 years. Dick Coyhoy and I worked a while together and trying to revive the downtown, the beachside area. I'm inside. I probably know almost every store owner and every restaurant owner on the beach. I'm in and out of the stores, and I hear the exact same complaint. The customers are circling Ocean Drive and even going down Cardinal to try to park, and they're not getting parking, and therefore they're not coming into our stores. And it's a real problem. And like I said, I don't have a problem with what Mulligan's is trying to do. I do have a problem with the parking that it's going to take for that restaurant. And when we were sent this letter to the property owners, because my parents owned the building, it did say that they're conducting a public hearing to allow the proposed addition. So as a store owner, of course, we're concerned that they're going to expand further. That is why we are here. We didn't know that this had already happened. In our mind, and I took this letter around to let other store owners see it because everybody is having the same problem with parking. We thought they were putting an additional 100 seats or 75 to 100 seats already out there.
That's not the case, correct, Tim?
No, that's
not correct.
But this, and I will read it to you. It says, in accordance with ordinance number 2008-06, you are hereby advised that the City Council of Vero Beach Planning and Zoning Board will conduct a public hearing on an application to allow the proposed addition of a 3,280 square foot outdoor dining area, including 7 paver areas with tiki huts, tables, and numerous Adirondack chairs at 1025 Beachland Boulevard. To me, does that not sound like they're wanting to add an
No,
additional?
I apologize, but if you read the staff report, it says the fact, and we should have written that way, but the problem is, I don't have authority to give that outdoor, and that's why we say proposed, but you're correct. I mean.
So that's why
yeah.
we were upset. I go to Mulligan's, and I knew that they had just added those tiki huts and a lot more Adirondack chairs. And like I said, I don't have a problem, but when you get this letter, you're thinking, okay, now they're going to add another 100 spots. So they're taking more parking away from the lack of parking that we already have. So as a very concerned person on behalf of my parents, my dad is 75 years old. My mom is pretty much retired. We are going to be the next generation, okay? What is to stop us from opening a big restaurant on that corner? Are we going to be allocated the amount? And then on the back here, it says that between the hotel and the restaurant, they are allowed a total allocation of 99 parking spaces. Is this in Sexton Plaza?
No, this is an allocation. That includes their parking on site. That's how much parking they're required to have, which is 95, I believe, in the thing. So the public parking, they're only credited for that. There's no allocation that. If you have a business there and you have frontage with some parking, you get credited for whatever's right in front of your store, okay? That you don't have to meet off-site
Why can't there be
or on-site.
7, 8, 10 spots for the retail shops on the beach?
Well,
This is what's going to happen, honestly. Here's a picture Saturday. This is a picture. I drove down there Saturday. There was not one spot. If you were to go in and try to buy a handbag, forget it. Wait. Where are you gonna park? Here's pictures.
And Ocean Drive is the exact same way.
There's not one spot for the merchants. What's going to happen is all the retail stores are going to close down. There's nowhere for them to park. Hey, I'm all about restaurants and more people coming into town, but you got to take care of the merchants too.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment? First of all, I think the city owes you an apology, and Tim apologizes for the confusing nature of that letter and perhaps bringing you down here unnecessarily, but you do get to vent about the parking. I think that the terms we use with parking, and I don't know whether we use this term or not, but the parking is not dedicated to Mulligan's any more than it's dedicated to a shop or to the beach. I think your real problem is going to be if Sexton becomes a guarded beach. But if Sexton Plaza becomes a guarded beach, that'll be a whole nother issue for parking. But, do you have any objections given that we're going to maintain the status quo here today? Nothing's going to change.
I'm sorry. I mean, as far as adding,
Yeah, we're not adding anything here. We're not subtracting. We're not doing anything with parking. We're just, I guess, blessing the status quo.
We do not have an objection with Mulligan's adding the additional spots. We do have a problem with them taking spots away from us, and because they're having. I mean, like I said, I go to Mulligan's. I don't know if you all do, but it is always crowded, and the fact that you're saying it's based on square footage, I don't understand that. It should be based on how many seats, and I'm assuming it's close to 300 or more. Now, a lot of them are foot traffic, but there are a lot that our parking in Sexton Plaza. I mean, Ocean Grill has their own parking lot.
Right.
So,
But you should understand that those parking spots in front of you and in front of them and in the middle are first come, first served. There are none dedicated to Mulligans, as I understand. There's none dedicated to you. If we require Mulligans to somehow create parking out of whole cloth, we'd have to do the same for you. What if we said you needed 5 parking spaces or
I think
something?
that'd be great.
Can we do that? Can we do a valet service?
Yeah, you can work with us in a valet service.
I mean, something's got to be done. There's no
the
parking.
comments you're bringing up are good comments. And we need to get the business owners, the city will work with you to come up with solutions, because there has to be some solutions to this. And I agree with Mr. Mucher. If we go to a guarded beach, believe it or not, I agree with you. I think there's going to be more people. And I think part of it's enforcement on this, but it takes money. And we need to have the business community working with us to do that. Because we want to help that. Because I think, obviously, last season, hopefully, it was good for your retail stores. And
it actually wasn't as good.
Oh, okay. Well, then
a lot of them are staying in the hotel and they're parking on Ocean Drive. And I know some of them don't want to pay for valet parking, so therefore they're taking spots on Ocean Drive. I think the restaurants and the hotels had a very good season.
Okay.
But I don't know how well the retail was.
Well, we would really would like to work with you on those kind of solutions, okay? We know, because, this is, all right? And I appreciate, and again, I want to sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding that I created.
Is any...
Well, I think it's just safe to say that the parking is a separate issue.
It is from this, but I think, thank you so much.
Well,
Could we keep those pictures that you showed
Yeah, could you
for the
pass them up?
clerk's records, if you don't mind?
I mean, this is a Saturday off season. So.
Oh, that's okay.
Penny? Just give the...
Good afternoon. My name is Penny Chandler. I'm with the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce. We represent dozens and dozens of businesses on Ocean Drive and in that district. And we, too, have been concerned. I'll just reiterate what Lauren Trey said about the parking issues. In the next week, we will be holding a meeting and have invited people from that area to come and join us in looking at solutions, which we will then bring forth to city planning, to the city manager, and we'll bring into you as well. But I think that we have to do something about the issues that are at hand, because it is hurting businesses. We are all also about, promoting the businesses, making sure that we have a viable tourism business and an industry in off-season as well. But when you can't get a parking place, it's a detriment to the area. So we want to work with the businesses to be able to come up with something, and we will come back with some possible solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Penny? Sir, you've been sworn in.
Hello, folks. My name is Bobby McCarthy.
Okay.
I own Bobby's Restaurant at the Reef Ocean Resort. Obviously, I've been here a long time, 33 years. And when I owned up Bobby's, there was certain requirements. I don't know, it was contingent on square footage, signage, but I had to have 40 parking spaces dedicated on the property at the Reef Ocean Resort. Now, this is 33 years ago. Obviously, things have changed. The landscape of Ocean Drive, Cardinal Drive area has changed dramatically, as you all know. And I've been since 1978. You've got new buildings. You've got both retail and professional use, larger hotel facilities. The main concern for the beach is parking, whether it be beach parking or people come to shop or go to restaurants. Now, I'm getting up here and talking about the parking. I have nothing against Mulligan's and nothing against any other place. I'm trying to come up with an answer. Employee parking, that's a problem. Now, fortunately, my employees park across the street behind Cooper and Company, so it opens up parking on my property. But I'm going to use an example, the Vero Beach Hotel. They're parking for the rooms available. They have 2 restaurants on site, plus a banquet facility, plus a day spa. No parking on property. no employee parking. They're all parking out in the street, from the Spires all the way down to Norris Company. I can come to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and have a full parking agenda out there at 9 o'clock in the morning, whether it's with something going on in the catering facility or the day spa. Now, I don't know how this got approved. I mean, that hotel, it's twice the size it was when the Pickett was there back in the 80s. And they did have parking available, plus they had no restaurants in the Pickett Hotel. Now you've got 2 major restaurants and a catering facility with no parking, no employee parking. It's, and then they keep the parking open for valet parking. So they'll have 25 spots of valet. Fortunately, the businesses across the street, most of them stock brokerage or legal offices, they're allowing parking there, probably because after 5 o'clock no one's paying attention. But what happens the day comes, they put chains on those parking lots for liability reasons or whatever. And that's more parking that's going to be less available. I know Norris does it right now because on weekends, their parking lot is full. Now here you're taking your client out to look at property, you come back and you got to walk 4 blocks to the office. And I sympathize with them. It's the way it is. The Holiday Inn put chains up because they probably have Beach people parking there. And the parking is brutal. Now, you just saw pictures. Here is the middle of August. Middle of August, and the parking areas are full. It's great. The town's vibrant. There's a lot going on. People are spending money. A lot of them going to the beach. It's a whole different town than what it was in 1980. And remember, we on the beach, we're paying premium rents too. Paying taxes and premium rents. I'll talk to Melinda, that owns Cooper and Company, and just what Lori said. Her business is open. She's got a little bit older clientele. They're not going to walk 3 blocks. If they can't pull right in, maybe come back tomorrow, maybe not come back at all. You know, I mean, I got Paul from the Lemon Tree over there. I mean, he's got employees from Waldo's parking in front of his building. And we have a meter made. One day we do, next day we don't. He comes every 2 hours, every 3 hours, and I watch people shuttle their cars around. He just marks a tire. And I watch it every day. I mean, it's kind of a joke. But like I said, he's got to cover a lot of area, one guy. And especially on weekends, when the beaches are crowded, they park right up to Cardinal Drive. I mean, you go down, and here is the middle of August. You know, what is it like in the season? It's just kind of out of control. Now, I've owned restaurants in Nantucket. I've had restaurants out in the Hamptons. You talk bad parking problems. It's just out of control. But what they do in Nantucket, they actually put a bus system in on the island, basically to take employees to and from work, because there's no parking downtown whatsoever, 0. You go out to the Hamptons on Long Island, they park in the periphery of the towns, whether it be a school that's closed or Southampton College that's closed, they make a deal with these people. Now here in Vero Beach, as you know, I've never approached these fellows, but you got the parking garage behind Tom Core's building. During the day, the ground floor is full. Top 2 floors basically empty. And at night, at 5 o'clock, the whole thing's empty. Why not make a deal with these people to initiate employee parking? I don't know what it'll entail. I have no idea. You also have Northern Trust Bank. That park lot, I was just there, empty all day long. And at 5 o'clock, empty. You got Beachland School. After school, empty. Riverside Park, dedicated area there, run a show. Not every hour, every 10 minutes. Figure out from the shop owners, restaurant owners, what the best schedule of this is, and shuttle the people back and forth. You know, you're going to walk from Riverside, but the parking garage behind Tom Core's building, that's within walking distance. I mean, it happens, like I said, Nantucket, out in the Hamptons, anywhere in Cape Cod. In those towns, they're not parking downtown. You're parking and you're walking. Like Penny, she's from Annapolis. That's the same problem there. But they got the flexibility to use the Naval Academy and walk. So it's basically you're using areas that lay vacant, and obviously it's private property most of the time. Or how about behind the baseball field over there by on Indian River Drive? I know it's part dog park. I think it's enough area there we could dedicate for parking. Employee parking. I'm not talking about the tourists, but even take a small restaurant like a business like Nancy's, Twig. She probably has 6 employees working all day long. Where are they parking? Take even a store with 2 employees. It's 2 more parking spaces. It's just. I mean, an area right here that's really struggling is Delray Beach. Now, all of a sudden, that's the hot place to live. I mean, 30 years ago, it was a dump. Now it's, well, the yuppies have moved there, they got restaurants, they got shops, and parking's an absolute nightmare down there. I talked to people who live there. So it's not a landmark situation here. I mean, in a tourist area, a small condensed area, it's kind of a prevalent, problem. Now, a year ago, I met with Penny, knowing she can't make decisions, but she could be the liaisons between business owners and you folks, to come up with some type of ideas, some type of theory. And I'm not saying run this whole year. What you do is run it from November 1st till May 1st, do it at the height of the season. I'm not saying make a year-round deal out of this, but sit down and organize the bus route or the shuttle route, whatever you want to call it, to conform to restaurant hours, business hours, retail hours. You know, I think it can be done. Now, I talked to Ham on about valet parking. He's got the building where Lee Jewelers is. And once again, then you got issues. Then they want liability insurance. It's $6,000-$7,000. Then you got to man the thing. So it gets a little spendy. But I think that you, the council, might give this some thought. Approach people like Northern Trust Bank. Approach the school district that parking lays empty all summer. Dedicate an area Riverside Park. I mean, with the exception of art under the trees or under the oaks, I mean, the rest of the winter, there's not much going on there. The boat show is in October. You know, so we work around that. I just think the parking on the beach is not going to get any better. I mean, it's at a point now where, you know, it's not going to go away next year. And like Lloyd's showing, he's showing pictures here in the middle of August. There's no parking. It's a nightmare. And I watch the employees from Real Beach Hotel. They go out, they park their cars, they move them every 2 hours. I see the same 8, 10, 12 cars out there every day. And like I said, I'm not blaming the meter maid, but he was very insignificant this past season. Like you see him one day, you wouldn't see him again. So it's a juggling act out there. But if they have a wedding at the hotel, guess where they're parked? Up and down the street. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been a problem with the spies, because I know that dedicated area in front of their building, they made an agreement with the city years ago because there's not enough parking on their property. If you own a condo in the Spires, you get assigned one spot. But they did make a deal with the city to use those spots right adjacent to their property. But now I'm watching people parking that are working in the area. So I'm surprised the Spires hasn't really made a bone of contention to that effect. But basically said, the parking isn't going to get any better. It's just going to get progressively worse. I mean, I don't know, putting meters in makes a difference. I don't know if that, and so you get a ticket. What's a $5 ticket for parking? I'll park all day for $5. And go down to Palm Beach. That would probably different mentality. They will valet down there, and they have access behind those restaurants on Worth Avenue at night. Now, during the day, it's a whole different animal. But I think something's got to be thought about, because it's not going to go away next year. It's only going to get worse. I mean, there's got to be an answer, and I really think it's the employee situation more than anything. I mean, you can't ask tourists what they are, people shop here is what it is, but I think employee parking is of utmost importance. So if you want to give us some thought, and like I said, I think Penny's got something planned the next week, I think, the 13th.
Before you leave the podium, can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
And maybe the board would like some other questions. Number one is, you today, what the main thing we're here, the thrust of our meeting today is to talk about mulligans.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular opinion on mulligans?
Well, no, I don't. It's just I don't know where they changed the rule. Like I said, in 1981, I had to show 40 parking spots on my property. And that's a long time ago. I mean, it's probably a handful of businesses still around since 1981 on the beach. And things change. I mean, I've never had a problem because it didn't reflect on me. But back then, that's what the deal was.
I will walk 2 blocks to get to your place, by the way.
Which a lot of people do. But it's also the thing. I've got a little bit older clientele, too, at night. I mean, it's walkers and canes. Looks like Lord's Francis some nights, But it's, and a lot of times, we pulled up. We figure you're packed. There's no parking. And you walk in, there's 8 tables. Yeah, because it's a function next door at the hotel. So that turns a lot of people off. The same what Laurie's saying. You pull up, you can't get a parking space. A lot of my clientele, they're not going to walk from down by the Spires. It's.
I don't know that our board can really deal with this. I think it's going to be the merchants in the city, and a board that has more particular authority than we do to be able. We know that one of the comments that I heard made here between you and Terry, Trey and Lori, was that the outside, square footage is the way it's done. It may not be the greatest way to figure out the parking spaces and et cetera that's there, but that's the way it is today. Until we change that, we must abide by those. If you meet that criteria, which is the rules and the law that we have today on the books, okay, in the city, then that's the way we have to approve it. Otherwise, the Mulligans have the right to do it if they meet all the criteria. No matter what I think or feel, if it's specific that they've met the criteria, then I have to vote for it.
So there's no requirement for parking on property. I mean, like, I'm going to use the hotel as another example.
But part of their parking is on that Holiday Inn site that was calculated.
I'm talking like the Vero Beach Inn next door to me. I'm talking about the Holiday.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah,
it's a nightmare. And like I said,
I understand.
Two full restaurants and a banquet facility and a day spa. And they're trying to put a tiki bar outside with more.
Well, they haven't got anywhere with the tiki bar yet.
Once again, now you're going to put another amenity on the property with no parking. And they're promoting the public to come there. And they run ads every week. I mean, you see them parking, it's like an entourage every Friday night heading over there.
I don't have a commercial venture on the beach. And what I do see, though, the more things that you want to have on the beach, I'm in favor of, because it sparks and enthuses the community and builds synergy, okay? But on the other hand, that synergy also causes problems to individuals out here on the beach, and some impact more than others. So it is a balancing act, and it's very
lose-lose, right?
Yeah, it's maybe a lose-lose situation in some cases.
In the retail, I think all the restaurants flourish. They're different animal. Like I said, people are going to walk 4 blocks to go buy a pair of shoes. They'll come back tomorrow. I mean, it's just, I know enough of the shop owners there, and they say, yeah, we had a good season. It wasn't blockbuster. You hit a point of diminishing returns almost. You can only do so much business.
I'm hoping some of that is that if I was buying shoes, I would be buying during the day, not in my dinner hour or my lunch hour. Yeah. There may be some variable there to affect. And we also have the possibility of a church coming to town, and their offset hours may be, sometimes you can work those things out. But I think some of the things you mentioned, in particular, with the parking that is available, is not being utilized effectively. I think that's going to take the different organizations to pull together to find some solutions. And what you've said in other places where I come from, those were possible answers. But I don't know that we have any facts yet to say how many people are really parking there that are employees of businesses on the beach. And I think that'd be nice to really have some data that you could sink your teeth into.
Well, like I said, I'm talking to Penny last year, and you've got to basically come up with a formula, because restaurants are probably the biggest employees on the beach, hotels and restaurants. And I know myself, unfortunately, used the property across from me where Belinda Cooper's store is, and the landlord's absentee. Now, if he comes back and says, well, I don't want these cars out here, put a chain across it. There you go. And I'm talking about, 10, 12 cars a shift, give or take. That almost frees up more parking on my property. And I'm surprised I haven't gotten complaints from the hotel. Because, February, March, April, that hotel is full there. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been, some type of a problem. I haven't heard of it. There might be, but it's very difficult. It is. It's just...
Additional questions from the board members?
Yeah. Bobby, thank you for your comments. I do need to remind everybody this is kind of a little off of our topic, but I applaud Penny's effort to put together a meeting of the Oceanside business people to come up with a solution. I know we've discussed a shuttle to Riverside Park before. I guess my question to you at this point is whether or not an employee-only shuttle would make a big enough dent in the problem, and how could it be enforced? But that's maybe something that they can talk about, or you all can talk about.
The business owners to put your foot down. I mean, it's unfortunate, it's awkward, but it's the way it is. It's just nature of the beast. And like I said, I don't care if you're here, you're in Nantucket, you're in the Hamptons. You got to go with the rules.
You don't work there if you don't abide by the rules.
I mean, it's only you're talking November 1st to May 1st.
They're telling us we got a problem today. Yeah. In June, July, August.
And it's not like you're walking through a snowstorm either. I mean, fortunately,
But you are walking through a rainstorm.
Yeah, pretty decent. Like I said, Penny's going to get together with, and like I said, I use her as kind of the middle person and she can't make decisions, but she could probably put a better program together than I might. I can just give her some ideas. And here is we're in August. It'd be nice if we get something going before January 1st for next season.
Well, I sure hope you come up with something and bring it back to the city, whether we're the right place
As long
or
as you
not.
realize the problem is there and it's got to be dealt with, It's
Absolutely. Thank you.
tough. I know that. Good. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm Jack Berrigan, and I'm
been
Bobby's
sworn in, Jack?
landlord. And I want to end with one thing. We have no idea how much money it is costing us because of this parking problem. And I wholeheartedly love to see Mulligan's do much better. But I got to tell you something, gentlemen. You got to fix this. We're spending money to keep places open for Bobby and for our own people. We have roughly 2,200 owners. You need to do something. I know it's not your problem, but guess what? You do have the ears of a lot of other people.
And no, it is we live in the city here. We're all members of the city, and we want it to be successful and prosperous. So we have an interest in it, that's for sure.
Most important, you remember, it's costing us money. Okay. That's the important thing.
Yes, sir. Have you been sworn in?
I have not.
Okay. Would you?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you give us your name, please?
My name is Edward Stephen Lauer. I reside at 1890 Tarpon Lane, and I own the building that is just to the north of the Holiday Inn, 3402 Ocean Drive through 3426 Ocean Drive. I've owned that property since 1989, and I'm here in opposition of this already fait accompli. My understanding is that the only reason that this restaurant may be in compliance is because of all of the grandfathering that's been going on with the Holiday Inn since the very beginning. And if that structure was built today, it would have to have 3 times more parking than it has right now. So the grandfathering is what is causing your planner to be able to say that this that this plan is feasible and can comply with the law. I don't. I agree with everybody as far as the parking problem is concerned, but it also concerns me that a business owner would go out and put structures out on the dunes without coming before this board and before the city to get approval. And it seems like it's cheaper to pay the fines than it is to comply with the law. And that bothers me a lot because I just did an expansion on my building. I had to come before this board. And the first question they had for me was, how many parking spaces are you going to have to borrow from the city? And I said, 0. We're not going to have to borrow any because we meet all the parking codes. And I guess that's an unusual situation for you folks to hear because we actually are complying with the law. But we did it the right way. We came before you and got permission. And it bothers me that a business owner like this would assume that they could put a structure on the beach. They could put tiki huts and all kinds of other things on our dune line without getting permission from this body and from the city. And I think if there's any way that you can look at what this building with the Holiday Inn and the restaurant would be required to have as far as parking is concerned, if it was built today, you're going to find out that the parking is woefully inadequate. The Holiday Inn now has the north entrance blocked off on the weekends so that everybody has to come by the front door so they can monitor the parking. And the Holiday Inn has been a very good neighbor to me. I have no problems with the people over there. You know, we're in very close contact. We've got borders that are very close to each other. They have to come through my property in order to get to the back part to cut the lawn or to do maintenance or whatever, and that's fine. I mean, we are all good neighbors, but this parking problem is a huge problem, and allowing this addition to the restaurant is only going to exacerbate the problem. And it's got to stop somewhere. Bobby was talking about the property to the north of him. I know that's not before you here today, but this is your opportunity to stop the expansion of these businesses where they really can't afford to expand anymore. It would be like the Twig deciding that they were going to move all of their showcase out to the sidewalk and let people walk around their clothes on the sidewalk. I mean, you wouldn't allow that. The code enforcement wouldn't allow it. If you go out there this afternoon, if it stops raining, there's going to be a bunch of people that have tents up on the sidewalk right in front of Mulligan's. I don't know what that's all about, but that's something that just sprouted up on Thursday nights a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be all the way out to the sidewalk. We're going to be on the middle of the street. We might as well close down Ocean Drive and have it a walking area, because what's going to happen next is that all these people are going to say, well, Mulligan's was able to do it. Why can't I do it? Why can't I move my business all the way out to the sidewalk? Why can't I move it all the way out to the dunes? I think it's got to stop here. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question
Yes,
for
sir.
me. When I read what's been given to me as far as their compliance with all the existing rules and regulations that the city has at this present time, they're in compliant with every one of them. If you can give me one example of where they're not compliant, I could possibly agree with you on it. But I've asked that question, and I've read the documents, and they're in compliant.
Okay, well, what's going to stop them from moving the Tiki Hut a little bit further north and moving all this structure further north and moving it all the way down to my property line and having the entire front of the Holiday Inn as their little tiki bar? What's going to stop them?
Well, what I think would stop them is if they did that, they would be non-compliant with what we're bringing before us today.
Aren't they non-compliant right now?
They are, but when you go back, as a good neighbor, when we talked about being good neighbors, I think what's happened there was just like the last one we approved, there was things beyond people's control, and this one went through a process where they were diligently trying to work with the city. And the city was diligently trying to work with them, and there was a lot of give and take there with the dumpsters and other things. And it exists today. I think that's a negative. You're correct. I will totally agree with that. It shouldn't be there until it's approved. Okay. The fact that they're ahead of the game is, but now that they are there and went through the process and all that they did with the complications that were reasonable complications, this wasn't they were dragging their feet, okay? And that's my understanding now, not a fact, but my understanding, that now they've brought us this document and they are in compliant, and I don't have a reason that I cannot vote for it.
Okay, well, I would request that this body table this matter so that the business owners can hire their own experts and try to find out whether that document is correct, whether there's a way that we can see whether that document is proper. We haven't seen this documentation. All we got was a letter a week ago or so saying that. And the letter was misleading, saying that there was another 3,000 square feet that was going to be added to the already beach area. That's the way I read it, and I think that's the way some other people read it. So I would request that, given the confusing nature of this notice, that the business owners be given an opportunity to look at this documentation and see if it is in fact in compliance.
But that's part of the agenda package, which has been there for...
Let me just add something here. We're under obligations, as all of our professional staff, to follow established guidelines, and they're legal guidelines. Our backup shows that back in 1967, they provided for X number of parking spaces. And that has held true ever since, and that is what we're working with. That's what they have had, it's what they have used, and it's the parameter that that we're obligated to look at right now. I understand your concern. I have
Yeah.
great
Well, was
sympathy.
in 1967? Were they on the beach? Did they?
Yeah.
They actually.
Oh,
had,
yeah.
They had tables on the dune
Oh,
line?
no. You see, that's a separate issue. What I'm saying is regarding the parking that they have established at the hotel, it's right, it's documented. What was required, what was provided. And according to those same kinds of professional guidelines that we're obliged to follow, there is a requirement on parking, and they're found to meet it.
And so they had excess parking before they came before
Could you just go
No.
back
They
on that,
basically
Tim?
got a special exception for parking.
Okay.
But that goes with the property. But let me point out, and then they had some other changes that they provided parking on site and subsequent. Almost every business on that beach is vested and don't meet the parking requirements. Everything from Ocean Grill to would not meet our current parking. So it's a problem why everybody has to get together and work.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's
a
an
major,
issue that
yeah.
we need to work with.
Tim?
Yes.
The letter you sent out, you mentioned you sent out the letter, and I don't see those because
it's the
I
one
don't
we
live within
right.
500 feet of any of these
Right.
fancy places. But there was something on the back talking about parking, and there's a little bit of additional information. But can I suggest, if it's not done already, that the letter have a link to the backup material so that it's easy to find? This package. If they want,
No, I don't have a
detail.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with doing that. That may delay some of the projects going forward because that means I have to have
it's only available within a week.
The full report done. But we could do is say within a week it'll be available at this link, and we could do that. But that's not a bad
I don't
suggestion.
know if that would help.
But at least they would have,
problem, but it'll help.
Right.
Well,
We do have a lot more data than you have, and what they've done and what they've had to go through to get to this point in time. And just as you said, you had to do it before, all the rigmarole you went through, probably with traffic studies, they did all this.
Yeah, and I did it before I started construction. That's the difference.
And,
We accept
well,
that part. I don't
yeah.
Thank you.
This is not new. I mean, how long ago with the visioning plan did we address this? And there's been charrettes and...
Well, and I just want, anytime anyone does expansion, even if they're vested to certain parking, then that expansion has to meet whatever those requirements are. So it's an incremental kind of thing. And with outdoor dining being excluded from the parking requirements, as I said, it was a policy decision approved by the city council and recommended by you several years ago. It does make a change on that. Previously, they held a lot of these people, restaurants and things, wouldn't allow it without going through a parking thing. In fact, we do have evidences of parking out there that would never approve that way, but now that we've gone there, it's been many years, we've let it go by.
I believe George Hart testified that he thought he had the city's approval to do that.
He had on and off again approval. I'm not going to argue. It was so complicated over there, moving chairs around, and there were a couple times they were doing some interim improvements, and I allowed them to move the tables out there. But it's immaterial really to now. What we're saying is if they came in and hadn't done anything, I believe you could approve what they were going to do now, whether it was out there or not.
Yeah, Jim Gabbard did, we spent time together, me and him on these issues.
You wish
I'm
to
glad.
speak, sir?
Yeah.
I'm just glad that
Come to the podium. Come on.
there's a serious effort now to address the problem, in the community.
Would you give us your name? Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I stood
Okay.
up with the group. My name's Joey Repplogel. My family runs the Ocean Grill restaurant. Mr. Tripson is also here in the back. He represents the Sexton family who owns the property. Everything I've looked at I agree, is very legal on paper. They're not doing anything wrong. However, in reality, they claim that they have 92 spots that are part of the Holiday Inn that is supposed to be used for Mulligan's parking. Technically, that's what they're claiming, to have that many seats. I have a picture with me today of a sign that says Holiday Inn guest parking only. All others will be towed. They don't have any access to those 92 spots that are supposed to be for part of their business. So what I don't understand is how can they claim the 92 spots if Holiday Inn doesn't let anybody else park there but Holiday Inn people? It doesn't make any sense. And I have a picture of it right here. to show you. If this board does want to pass this, I think they should pass on the contingency that the sign has to come down and they have to use the parking that they're claiming.
Isn't it true that those 92 spots are for the combination of the
They were approved
restaurant?
originally from that. You might want to talk to the applicant about
I think
whether
that's where you need
what
to go.
kind of lease agreement they have with the landlord on the parking.
Well, no, please don't speak from back
you
there.
need
Wait
to-
till the gentleman's completed.
Because I can't. Okay.
I mean, that is my biggest argument.
Okay.
I have a lot of other points that I was going to make. However, I feel like, we've gotten off subject on some other people speaking. One other thing I do want to say, I understand that the 1967 parking exception grants them to have they only need to require 95 spots. And with the 92 that they supposedly have from the Holiday Inn, they only need another 3 more, which they get from the 7 they have from the Sexton Parking Plaza. And that's fine. There's nothing illegal about that. And my biggest concern is that they should have access to a minimum of 36 spots in that parking lot. If you look up for the code under the 1967 limitation and exception, they should have access to at least 36 spots that they don't have access to.
I think we have to ask the applicant that question yet.
Okay? And would you guys like
Do
the
you-
picture?
Yes, anything you have, we'd like to see it, please.
Okay. That's my argument, is if this sign is up and they're regularly enforcing not to let anybody use this parking, how is it part of their parking?
Thank you.
Well, he's coming up,
question-
Tim. Do these 7 spots, are they dedicated to mulligans only? Or are they only giving credit?
No, not until they're just
7
getting
public
credit.
spots?
They're just getting
Okay,
credit.
just wanted to understand
If
that.
I could, we are part of the Holiday Inn property, so when it says guests of Holiday Inn, we're considered part of the Holiday Inn.
If I came to your restaurant, I would be a guest of Holiday Inn as well as Mulligan's.
You could
is that
park
correct?
there, yes.
I can park there.
Yes. Number 2, all of our staff parks in that lot, all the way to the north side of the lot, going east and west. If you go in their parking lot, go to the end, east and west, all of our staff parks there. So we do utilize the parking lot for our employee parking. So we do share the lot. There's no question that we share the lot. What a sign reads, I mean, you can interpret it any way you want to interpret it, but we are part of the Holiday Inn. We serve the Holiday Inn guests. We're part of the Holiday Inn, and our employees park in that lot.
If I came to your restaurant and parked in that lot, would my car legally, by your definition, could it be towed if I was enjoying my meal at your restaurant?
I don't believe so. I can't answer
Well,
that.
I think
I'm not the manager of the hotel, so I don't know what the hotel manager would do, but I can say that I don't believe it would be towed.
My question would be, how would the Holiday Inn or the towing company or whoever, how would they know whether the person who parked there who was not a guest and did not register their car license plate at the front desk, how would they know whether they're at your place or the beach or across at
Well,
the
they wouldn't.
Ocean Grill or where
But
they're
if I was staying in a room at the Holiday Inn and you were my friend in Vero Beach, you came to visit me, you certainly could park in that parking lot. So I don't think that they're policing that lot and towing cars, and to the extent that they're...
Probably not.
No. And I would add that I would be glad to be involved with any kind of valet or shuttle service financially, with my time, with my efforts. I have absolutely no problem participating in that with everybody on that beach. I have restaurants on several beaches, and every beach has a parking problem. There is no beach that's a good place to go that doesn't have a parking problem. A lot of them have shuttles, a lot of them have buses, a lot of them have employee parking lots. I don't think we've addressed it in Vero Beach. I think that we should all get together as merchants and come up with a solution. A lot of the parking lots do have designated spots for stores. They could take 5 spots and put signs in front of their stores designated for their store. I mean, these are things that happen in places where I have restaurants, where they'll have a sign right in front of their store. These are their 4 parking spots or their 5 parking spots. We can certainly get a shuttle and bring the employees back and forth. There's a lot of things we could do. I'd be glad to have a valet service in front of Mulligan's. If we have a place to put the cars, I'd be glad to financially take that burden on and have a valet service. So if we need to get together as a group and come up with a plan, but I'm certainly more than willing to lead that charge and to participate in trying to make things better for all of us. The more parking spots, the better for everybody. And the more employees we can get out of those parking lots and those parking spots, the better for everybody. So anything I can do to help, I certainly will.
I have one piece of information now if I'd like to give to our board members, and this is a fact because it's my wife. She uses one of the places whether she gets her hair done or her nails done, I'm not sure which, in that building. And because she now and then could not find a place to park, she has a sticker that they give her that she can park in the Holiday Inn parking lot that has an emblem on it that she won't get.
And a lot of the cities do as well have parking for the people
They
that
are
live in
letting
Vero.
business, my point being,
Yeah.
the businesses in that, in at least this one case, has the ability to find a place for her to park.
There's a lot of different options on how to overcome parking. You're never going to overcome it completely. If you want to be a popular beach and have popular hotels and restaurants and shops, it's going to be crowded. Thank God it's crowded for all of us. But there are certainly ways that we can get a lot of those cars out of there. We just need to get together and discuss it. Thank you.
I have a question for
Yeah,
you,
sure.
sir. Earlier, you had mentioned that your banquet room was not open to the public when your beach chairs and dining are open.
Correct.
Okay.
But we have two different banquet rooms. Yes, but neither one of them are open when the outside.
Okay.
Yes.
You also said that you had approximately 70 seats in your banquet rooms that would be closed off when you used the 70 seats out on the back
Yes.
patio. Okay. Would you be willing to stipulate that as a condition?
Well,
number one, and number two, would you be willing to stipulate no more than 70 seats beachside?
Number one, yes, I would be willing to stipulate that. And number two, we're approving 70 additional seats. We already have a patio that's been approved 12 years ago that's outside seating. These are additional seats in the 3,200 square feet, which we're discussing. This is not the initial patio that I've already been allowed since day one, which had the nice smell of my dumpster there for the first 7 years I was there. So again, that seating was already there. But yes, my kitchen cannot handle that kind of capacity. If we're full outside and we're full in our main dining room, we're full in our bar, we don't want any more tables.
So you're suggesting expanding the outdoor dining to a total of 100 seats, 70 plus the
Plus,
30
I think
patio.
it's 40 or 45, 40, yeah. So about 115
110 seats.
Yeah. Well, which has been that way for, 5 or 6 years now, but we're really not, yeah.
But earlier there was testimony that there have been 200 or 300 chairs and seats out on that back lawn.
No. More than the total seating of no more than 220 inside and out. Now, that doesn't include the Holiday Inn's big banquet room that seats 90 people that most of the time are used for auctions or small meetings. But, that's a Holiday Inn. That's a Holiday Inn room. I don't have, according to my lease, I don't have any use of that room. So I provide food for it once in a while, but for the most part, they use it for auctions and meetings.
Thank you.
But yes, we're no more than 220 seats. We're not 300 seats. Thank you.
You have another comment, sir?
Yeah, I would like to add that about the sign, and when we have our own parking at the restaurant and we have to pay a full-time attendant to explain to people, you are welcome to park here, and he makes sure they park there and they walk into our restaurant. Nobody knows that they can use the Holiday Inn parking if they actually can. I've never heard of anybody actually parking in Holiday Inn and then going to Mulligan's that wasn't staying there. The gentleman here, the owner, said he wasn't sure. He said he didn't think they would be towed. That's not really a definite answer. In my opinion, if you guys are going to pass this, the sign should be up that says Mulligan's and Holiday Inn parking. It's just not very clear, and I'm not sure that if I parked there today and walked into the restaurant that I wouldn't get towed. There's nothing there, and everything else is roped off on the other side. So there's only one way in. There's a very clear marked sign that says Holiday Inn only. And I'm happy to leave the pictures here. I had some other points to make, but that's the basic argument that I would really like to leave with you. Okay?
Peggy, can you shed any light on what we're hearing right now?
You mean in terms of the clarity of the sign?
Yeah. Because part of their total acceptance is the fact that it was in the initial count.
Tim, is there something in your backup that says that there is no deficiency with parking?
No, there's no deficiency, but I mean, the gentleman has it is an argument. The question is, I'd have to look at the special exception and all that, but I mean, basically, they meet the requirements. But again, remember, parking requirements, not only are these been vested for how many years, but it doesn't take into account how successful restaurants are or anything else. I mean, it's the average. So,
Yeah, on paper, they have the right amount of spots.
I mean, they have the right amount of spots, so I don't know how we...
They don't use them.
And also remember that the Holiday Inn attorney is not here.
Right.
And he is the landlord.
Yeah.
I'll defer to the attorney and the planning director, but I don't believe that this board has anything to say about you may be towed signs on anybody's property.
That would need to be addressed with the owner of the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, I think that's an enforcement issue, possibly. I know it's not a board issue. I can't interpret that, you see what I'm saying? Yeah. But I have to interpret the documents and your insight. But you brought a point that I think you raised, a very valid point, but I can't do anything with it right now.
All right, well, that's what I was here to do today, to raise the concern and the point that I don't think very many people or very many patrons of Mulligan's are having access to this parking that they're supposed to have access to.
I know whether I'm attending you when I go to your restaurant, I park in your lot. It's so easy. It's wonderful. When I go to Mulligan's, which we do more for lunches and things like that, then I find a spot there. Usually you have to wait. Some days to go around twice, but I'll get a spot. So
Perhaps this is something that Ms. Chandler, when she convenes the group together, could include the Holiday Inn representative and discuss this as a possible issue and a possible solution.
Okay. Well, do you guys want to leave the pictures here, or who do I leave them?
Yes, that would be great if you could leave it with our clerk.
With the clerk. With the clerk, or just, that'd be fine.
I have a question about this sign for the city. That sign, and there are a lot of them around town, a lot of condominium projects, parking lots have these towing signs. And at face value, you have to assume that they are in compliance with either local and or state law that says if you violate the terms of that sign, you can be towed. And I look at that as a deterrent to park there unless you are a guest of the Holiday Inn. And that sign doesn't say anything about Mulligan's.
But if I'm on the Holiday Inn property and I'm purchasing a meal, I assume that it's like if you went into their dining hall, am I a guest? If I'm using their restroom, am I a guest? I mean, there's a lot of ways I'm a guest of Holiday Inn. If I'm going to the hairdresser, I think it's a hairdresser she goes to there. They just gave her this so that nobody would question her. Okay, because she did get questioned one day parking there, and she just said where she came from, and they said, okay, no problem. So they gave her a sticker after that. So I know that you can, because there's a number of retail places right along there, not just Mulligan's, that are part of the hotel. And I don't know how to validate that. Can any of those use their parking lot? I think so. At least my wife can.
But my point is that, Mr. Chairman, that it's a question. It's an issue.
It is a question.
And who's to say that the hair salon isn't a part of the Holiday Inn? It's a tenant, the same as Mulligan's.
No, it's an accessory to the Holiday Inn. It's had all that was approved. That was part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So guests of the hair salon may or may not feel free to park in that lot because of that restrictive sign. And I think that sign does have some influence on today's hearing. I think it does throw into question available parking places.
I'm not sure that those signs are legally enforceable except by the property owner. If somebody parks on my front lawn, I can. Well, that's true. I can pretty confident I can have them towed with or without a sign. But I don't think there's a whole lot of towing going on, like someone said. And unless there were a chronic offender and they followed them down the street to somewhere completely off of the Holiday Inn property, When I eat at the Ocean Grill or Mulligan's, I park in Sexton Plaza somewhere.
I have kind of an answer to what you all are talking about. I did talk to a young lady the other day who works at the Holiday Inn. She works the front desk. And if they are 50% occupied, they are not allowed to park in the parking lot. They have to park on the street.
The employees.
Now, I'm in and out of all these stores all the time. They are given a Holiday Inn sticker that goes on the front of their car. Now, they are parking in front of Sassy's and Kemp's, and they're taking their parking spots because they're not allowed to park in the parking lot if they're at 50% occupied. Now, all the hotels now, Costa d'Este, Driftwood, and Holiday Inn, all say for guests only, you will be towed. But then they're telling staff to park on Ocean Drive and take away from the merchants. That is a fact. And I know it because I've heard it from Driftwood. They're doing it at the Driftwood, and they're doing it at the Holiday Inn. And I also know that the seating outside at Mulligan's is more than 75 because I've counted. It's 125. And now they're talking about adding another 70. Is that
No, they're not adding any more.
Okay. Well, it is 100 and it's more than 75.
But that would be a code enforcement thing. If there's an issue there, you should call code enforcement, I believe, and let them take a fact check and see what's happening. If any problem you have in the city, I think
Tim doesn't want you to.
Well, no.
But you call the city and say there's a violation.
I mean, we go by square footage, and remember, square footage includes the kitchen, all the other areas in the restaurant, and you do that because trying to keep up with how many seats are out there would be an administrative nightmare under enforcement, and that's why we do it that way. Now, whether you want to.
But it's not a board's decision to check it. That's my point. It's not our board to say, we're looking at this is what's proposed, this is what he should do. If there's something beyond that or different than that, it's not this board's decision.
Well, we're saying we're going to permit you to have 100 and X number of seats, and if he has 100 and X plus 20, then you're right. He's in violation.
No, you're basically giving him the ability to put outdoor dining. You're not setting a limit unless you do that through a condition on it that how many seats he can have out in that area.
I don't think we have the right to do that.
Well, I mean,
can we limit it?
And I think Penny heard your comment
How can you enforce
on employee parking policies, and hopefully you can attend and she'll bring it up at the meeting as to how to solve some of those problems.
Lori, are you?
There's not much we can do.
Lori, would you want us to pass this, or do you want me to reject this today?
Well, I feel like there's a lot more information that has been brought up. I was under the assumption when this meeting started that they were allowed to use Holiday Inn parking lot. I think until we know for sure that they can use the Holiday Inn parking lot, then I would say no.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I don't have a problem if they can use the Holiday Inn parking lot, but it does say for Holiday Inn guest only, and I know they're two completely separate two completely separate businesses.
Right,
So
but
if
from
there
a
is
practical standpoint, you're not going to have Holiday Inn parking, Mulligan's parking,
It should say
Rosie's
Holiday
hair salon, Joe's insurance, and somebody's real estate. You know, the signs can only be so big, and I imagine they're not enforced anyway.
I would just like to hear from the Holiday Inn that if I go to eat at Mulligan's, that I'm allowed to park there.
Thank you, Lori.
Well, the problem, the conundrum she brings up, and I said it's a good issue, this is outdoor dining that we don't even require parking for. So if this issue came up, this has been an issue that's been ongoing since whenever this was approved, whenever they put that sign out. So I'm just telling you,
so there's no requirement for outside dining.
There's no requirement really for the outside for parking out there, other than for those 2 or 3 extras.
If the Lemon Tree or Cravings or one of those, we don't count that.
Not if they put outside dining that is clearly not under a cover or something.
And our vision plan, which has never been implemented, was very powerful in terms of the desire for outside dining.
That's right. So, I mean.
Okay. Have you been sworn in?
No.
Could you give us your name?
Paget.
Okay.
I'm a store owner on Ocean Drive.
If you'll raise your right hand,
Hi.
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's Patty.
With Paget. With the extra seating outside that is there, Have they been penalized for any, I mean, are there penalties involved in doing something before you get a permit?
They were fined $50.
Really?
Well, no. They were willing to come into compliance and worked with us, and we explained that they had a real there were issues with the landlord to be able to submit an application.
Well, they said that they were apart with the landlord and being a part of the Holiday Inn. Therefore, their parking was a part of the Holiday Inn, which I surmise is probably not the case.
But again, as we're pointing out, the outdoor seating dining area doesn't require parking under our code.
Okay, it doesn't require parking, but it does require. How many employees is that going to bring into that arena to find more parking that there is none of? And I have an employee that works for me that worked at the Holiday Inn who was told that nobody from Mulligan's was allowed to park on their premise. She worked for them for over a year. And as Laurie stated, that when it's 50% occupancy, that their employees may not park there. So there's a problem here.
Well,
very, very big problem.
Ma'am, I'm pointing out that the code does not require parking for outdoor dining. The issues you're bringing up are germane issues from the standpoint of what's transpired in the past. I don't know how to rectify that.
They're saying that they're allowed to park there. They're saying that they're trying to make it feel good for us that we have stores on Ocean Drive. It doesn't feel good, by the way. And, you know, if the gentleman is kind enough to offer a service of trolleying his employees back and forth, I think this whole thing should be tabled until he provides that for his employees, which will be quite a few employees to even implement going all over the beach and serving drinks and food. I mean, he offered it. I think we ought to, you know, commend him and just say, let's table this, vote on it at another time after he implements this, and then deal with the parking problem at a later date. It's, you know, that's not what we're here about. We're here about a variance. If I expanded my business, if I wanted to serve food out in front of my store, I can't even put a sign out in front of my store. If I put balloons out, code enforcement comes to see me. Did y'all know that?
Yes.
That's pitiful.
Balloons, yes.
That's pitiful.
I believe the Oceanside Business Association turned down the A-frame signs.
We have a balloon policeman. That's good. That policeman ought to be checking cars parking overtime all the time. And he can be called a balloon policeman. I don't care. But I think their variance should be tabled until they offer this as a service. He was willing to do it, and I think you are responsible enough to see that that is a problem. And the fact that somebody can expand outside of, in other words, under air, they can expand. Under roof, you have to get a variance, you have to get permitting, you have to do all these things. That's something that sort of slipped behind the cracks, and it is a problem. And I think Ocean Grill should just load up the beach. I think Chelsea's should get his parking lot out, get a band out there, and have at it. Why not? I think Lemon Tree, he doesn't have enough tables. I think everybody ought to just have a free-for-all and do the same thing. Then what are we going to deal with?
From a practical standpoint, tabling this wouldn't help because it's an existing condition.
Well, the fine is pathetic.
And also, I believe Mr. Hart testified that he has parking for his employees.
He does not.
He's shaking his head. Yes, he said the Holiday Inn gives him parking for his employees.
As we know, we were just told by an attorney that isn't the. We need to see it from the Holiday. We need their representative here or their legal team here to say, yes, in fact, they do have X amount of parking. We're taking his word for it. He's the one that's trying to get the variance. We're not. And I think that's
what I'm afraid the missing link might be here is that he doesn't have to do that. He by what we've done, the research been done, by the applications he's filed, he is in compliance with what we have to vote for. And if I do otherwise, there'll be a legal suit to follow it up, I'm sure, to say because we've exceeded our abilities to do otherwise. And whether I like it or not, if you tell me you want to do something in your store and I don't like it or I think it's impacting the neighbor, if you have the legal right to do it and we tell you can't, you will find a way to make it so you get your legal rights put out there. I'm not saying it very well because I didn't plan this, okay? But my point is that I can't infringe upon your rights to do this. He has the right, unless there's something particular I asked for that one gentleman that was here, and I can't find that yet.
To get a variance for $50, I'd just let that rip, wouldn't
Well,
you?
I think if I'm correct, what he did, he pled guilty to that, paid the small fine, but then agreed in that guilty plea to do this, what he's done, and he subsequently did that item per item per item until we come to this point where he has now complied. Because if he didn't agree to do that, then there'll be fines over fines over fines that keep adding up to a cumulative amount, which becomes prohibited after that. So he didn't go into that category. He did this to the best of his ability, and that's what we've been told by our planning director. And if that's not accurate, then I've been misled on that. But I think that is accurate.
Well, then I think it's very honorable that he wants to offer a trolley service for his employees. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Hi, I just want to say that employees are able to park at Holiday Inn. I have a sticker just like your wife does, so when I go there, I can park in the Holiday Inn. They do ask that we don't park there, when they're busy, which unlike Coaster or Vero Beach Hotel and Spa, they can't park there at all. Our employees are allowed to park in the Holiday Inn parking lot. If you're visiting someone there, like yesterday and today, we had a fashion show by Paddington, and DD's Shoes were there, and we had, at the back room, and they had fashion show, and so people are walking up and seeing that. So people are allowed to park in the Holiday Inn with sticker that your wife got as well.
I have a question for you, ma'am. When they ask you, who has a sticker for your car, not to park in the Holiday Inn parking lot, where do you park?
Sometimes Charlie lets me park at Ocean Grill, or I park in Sexton Plaza, or I park on the street.
On the street?
Yeah, or in one of those places. As people who come to Ocean Grill also park in Sexton Plaza, even though they have a parking lot. They do park. People just park everywhere.
Right.
Because normally people are going from place to place. They walk around. They start at Bobby's. They come to Mulligan's, have a drink, go to Ocean Grill, walk down to Waldo's. People are parking everywhere and kind of walking back and forth during our busy time.
Right, but you as an employee.
Well, I don't work in the restaurant all the time, but I as a park in Holiday Inn, or I park in Sexton Plaza.
On the street?
On the street.
Right, so you're one of the many employees that parks on the street if on-site parking isn't available?
I'm only there, like tonight, I'm only there on Thursday nights. If I'm there during the day, I'm in Holiday Inn parking lot. I'm there on the street after hours.
Okay.
If there's not a place.
From just the information you gave me, I believe that the merchants need to police themselves in some ways about if the parking's this bad, and I believe there's some merit to that statement, that they need to become more cohesive in their own ability to make the bad situation better, because we're not going to create a high-rise parking garage anyplace on Ocean Drive, that's for sure. And with that in mind, I think that it has to be something that's viable, whether it's a transit system or whether it's a parking lot a few blocks away someplace or something like that. So, I think that my view is that I think that's all I'll say.
Well, I'm reminded that when we did that overlay, we granted underground parking to the Holiday Inn, and that will alleviate a lot, but that's in the long term. Right now, we have a short-term problem. Well, it's been a long problem, and it's growing as we grow, and I'm just very pleased that Penny Chandler is putting together a group to address this problem, and I'm sure she'll be bringing it forward.
Right. We did reach out to people, ask them if we could rent their parking lots for our employees, or things like that. No one was willing to do that earlier. So George has offered to do that numerous times. I've reached out to many people on Oceanside to ask if he could take on. He was offering to pay the liability or anything over there, just to help with the parking in general, not just because that's just the way he is. So, anything else?
Any questions? Thank you. Nancy?
Hello again. I'm Nancy Cook, and I own the Twig on Ocean Drive, the business and the building. And I want to make it perfectly clear that I think everybody that was speaking here today feels like me. We are happy Mulligan's is doing really well. Really well. But could we say that at the expense of our businesses doing as well because of the parking crush? That would not be a natural thing to say. Although like I say, we're very much in favor of Mulligan's and how successful it is. That's not a problem. We send people there all the time. But I think that we all have to consider our neighbors, and if we do anything at this point to put more pressure on a strangling parking system, which that particular area and all the way down the street, the hotel employees do take my parking, and they move their cars, and it's not something I hear occasionally when a customer comes in and says, "You haven't seen me for a long time because I can never find a place to park here, even if I'm willing to walk several blocks. I can find no place to park." So it is hurting the retailers, and it's a tough combination to have a combination of the retail stores combined with unlimited beach going and successful bars and restaurants. That's a tough combination parking-wise. And we don't have a magic wand. We have to deal with it somehow. But every time we bring up a suggestion, people say, "Well, we don't want paid parking. Well, we don't want a parking garage. Or we don't want a Center Street Park Cardinal Drive." Well, we don't have a magic wand. And the stores that are paying the rents in those buildings, as far as business is concerned, I'm probably a fairly good barometer. And it was harder to do the business we normally do this year than it was the year before. We had to work harder at it. Number of sales is up, ticket items is down. So there's a lot to think about here when they have the legal right to have more seating, which will use more parking. Who's parking? And their employees will require more parking. Who's parking? We're all in this together. And what's good for one is good for all. Or there's just a few isolated things that are doing really well and the rest are just struggling. So it's a major decision to pass variances that, even though they're legal, and they're after the fact, that's another issue. It's the precedent. You just do what you want and then get it approved. I don't know. I don't admire your job right now, but we will try to come up with some plans, but know that you're going to hear some opposition to whatever we propose. So
Nancy,
that's where we feel. We're all in this together. What's not if my business is usurping the ability of my neighbors to have good business, then I have to deal with my how I'm running my business.
Nancy, I think you said that you send people to Mulligan's. I think you'd probably agree that there's a synergy, and people come out of Mulligan's and see your place and go over there.
Absolutely.
Maybe after a few drinks, maybe they buy a little more. But,
well, maybe.
But would you agree with Bobby that the employee parking situation would make a pretty good dent in this problem?
Oh, it would, because, for instance, in my business and along that section of Ocean Drive, you have Gloria Estefan's that doesn't have enough parking, Driftwood doesn't have enough parking, Holiday Inn doesn't have enough parking. When you just take all those employees combined, that's a lot of people.
Absolutely.
A lot of people.
Well, again, I hope you all attend this.
I will.
This parking meeting and try and work out something on the employee parking issue.
And the fact that we need the 2-hour limit enforced, because we are experiencing a tremendous impact from all-day beachgoers. They bring their coolers and their drinks that they bring with them, and they don't come in a store. And
the employees don't shop at your places either. So that detracts from the synergy. But the boss of the chief of police is here listening you about the timing issue anyway.
And the character of the beach is at stake. Everything is either moving in a positive direction or in a negative. And we want it to always be positive. We want it to get better and better. So we have to solve our problems. We have to be in this together. All the merchants, all the hotel, motel, restaurant owners, we're very much dependent on each other.
Mm-hmm. Tim, maybe
Thank you, Nancy.
After this parking session that Penny has, maybe we can have some kind of a parking workshop or something so that we don't have these all-day meetings that are a little bit off topic.
I'll just
Trey,
make it
go ahead.
real quick. A couple things. Saturday, we don't have a guy running the streets, right? Giving tickets?
Right.
Okay. Saturday's the biggest shopping day of the week. Saturday's the biggest beach day of the week. There's one problem. So we need Saturday. I mean, we need a cop or someone to man the streets for 2-hour parking. Second, and I'm all for mulligans. I love mulligans. I'm not, it's all about everyone making money, but it's also about, do you want all the stores on the beach to close because they're not doing well? Okay. And second of all is, here's a picture that this past Saturday, every spot in Sexton Plaza was taken. From Ocean Drive, from the produce market, up around 2 Bobbies, up to the Spires. Not one spot. There's 25 parking spots in Holiday Inn. So are the employees parking in Holiday Inn? That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Go ahead.
I just want to say that at one time at the restaurant, we have maybe 20 employees working in the restaurant itself. So, when they talk about Costa and Hotel and Spa and all those, we only have 20 at the most Mulligan's employees at a time. A lot of people are dropped off, picked up, and we do have people parking. But I just want you to know that we don't have 200 people or, we only have 20 employees at a busy time.
Seeing nobody else coming forward, I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting. And the board, have you ready to make a decision, or do you want to have some additional discussions?
I believe if they're in full compliance, Mr. Chairman, we don't have a choice, even if we wanted one. So I think we ought to move forward unless somebody else has some comments.
Well, I'm prepared to vote, but I think until that signage in Holiday Inn is dealt with, I don't think our problem is solved. I don't think that I can vote for this being in compliance.
Any comments?
Tim, can you respond to that?
Well, again, I get back. I don't know if that is germane to what you're looking at right now. I mean, it's been an ongoing if it is a problem. We've had conflicting testimony whether people can do it or not. I mean, the main issue we have here is whether this outdoor dining meets, and I believe it does. I mean, that other issue is something I think should be discussed later as part of this group, getting into that thing with the employees. So the staff still sticks by its recommendation.
Peggy, do you have any comment on that?
What I think your planning director is saying is that because there's no parking requirements for the outdoor parking, and that's what's in front of you in this site plan application, It's not a variance, it's a site plan application, then it's not germane. What it appears to be germane to is the overall parking for overall Mulligans, not the outside dining, which is an entirely different issue as I understand your planning director.
I would concur with what you just said in a much better way than I did.
Tim, could you volunteer to, next time you're talking to somebody from the Holiday Inn, maybe clarify this position? Or
I will
have a discussion with them?
That I would like to have George. He needs to get involved since on that.
Well, he
Certainly,
can't find him either.
No, he's easy to.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Then I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Your motion is that we
Accept staff's recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Joe, you second? We have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready for a call for a vote.
Mr. Cahoy?
I do not concur with staff's recommendation. I vote no.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Mucher?
Yes.
Mrs. Manous?
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer?
Yes.
Passes 4-1.
Thank you.
The next item to come before us is another quasi-judicial. Matter of fact, would the board have any need for a 5-minute?
Could I have, I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We're going to take it's right now it's 3:54 at 5 minutes. We'll make it 3.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, we'll just say, we'll come back.